Alright, today we're going to be tearing into a 1971 Yamaha CT175. We're going to pull the head off the cylinder, we're going to pull the Magneto, the flywheel, and then go over here and pull the clutches off. This Kickstarter isn't engaging, so we're going to figure out what's going on there. First thing we're going to do is pull this head, 17mm head bolt. And there's 4 of these bolts, and that head just pops right off. This, underneath this head, is going to be the head gasket. And it's kind of a brass color there. And then we've got some specialty head bolts here. So you want to make sure you hang on to those. Don't lose them. There's 4 of those there. So that's our head. You want to make sure, inspect this. It's got some corrosion in here. And make sure there's no major dinging or damage to that dome there. Next thing we're going to do is pull this cylinder, and there's really nothing else holding this cylinder on since we pulled those head bolts out, but they can be sometimes a little bit of a challenge, so we'll see how this one goes here. You don't want to take a hammer and tap in on these fins here. These fins are aluminum, they break very easily, so the best thing, if you can just take and pull up on it, a lot of times they break free. That base gasket, which is on the bottom there, will a lot of times slide up. So this piston might be stuck, and that's going to give us some trouble. If it is, we might soak that with WD-40 and come back to it a little bit later. That happens on these older ones, especially when they've got motors or kickstarters that are seized up on them. What I do sometimes is take a rubber mallet if this is seized up on there, that piston's not going to be any good. So you could actually take a steel hammer, tap on the piston, but I think we're going to be able to get it without doing that. So if you can take WD-40, spray it on there, kind of work it up and down. A lot of times that'll help you get it off. Now, we've got the cylinder off there just by doing that. It's all it took. So next thing we're going to do is pull that piston. And this would be if you're rebuilding the top end, replace either the cylinder, you replace the sleeve on here, or get it bored out. And then you want to replace the piston. So take on this style, you can take a pair of side dikes or real small needle nose pliers. Grab a hold of that piston pin, or excuse me, that circlip there. We're going to need them smaller than this even. You can grab a hold of the circlip that's holding that piston pin in and pull it out. Now if you turn it, you can see that's what it looks like there. So if you kind of turn it towards this end of the clip, it'll kind of loosen itself. Now we're going to push this pin out, and just based off of how difficult it was to get that piston out, we're going to need to tap on this pin. Now you don't want to do this if you're going to keep this crank. You want to make sure that make sure the crank is supported before you tap on this. And you can do that just by putting a block. Sometimes it just takes a tap. Sometimes it's a little more of a challenge. So we'll work on that piston pin when we get this motor flipped over, and we can put a block underneath here and tap on that pin a lot more. So next thing we're going to do is lift this motor up here. Go ahead and put a block so you guys can see. We're going to pull this Stator Magneto assembly off. We've got to pull this Kickstarter to do that. 10mm bolt on the bottom here. And in an area we can't get to it with a socket. So your shifter might be slightly different than this. I'm not sure if this was stock. If you had a thin socket, you could get on there with a socket, but I have an impact socket that I'm using. Get that off of there. You can take anything and kind of pry this off. This one wobbles a little bit, which isn't